When we're making music, we want to keep the creative momentum going as much as possible. And in order to do that, we need to get rid of any friction in that process. So for example, when we're writing with like orchestral libraries, it can sometimes be a pain to make all these changes to the articulations and the intensities and the mic balances, because it takes you out of that creative momentum. And this is the idea behind what Vienna Symphonic Library is calling flow in the Synchron Prime Edition, because they basically designed the plugin in a way that makes it really easy to adjust those parameters on the fly. So let's take a look at it in action. So when you open up Synchron Prime Edition and you go into the flow as opposed to the precision view, this new flow view, this is kind of the layout of where you can choose all of your instruments. So if we were interested in a string section, we could click this bottom area here and select one of the strings. We could go to the woodwinds, the brass, or the percussion and choose that way. And once we select the instrument that we want, it'll jump us over to sort of this main hub page right here. And this is like where all the magic happens. And right away, you can notice that there aren't 1,000 different parameters to take our attention away from the creative process. There's just a few things to adjust based on some general things that you might want to change over time. So for example, this dynamic slider here, you can control the overall style, of course, but you can also fade it in and out depending on what you're working with. So if you have a little bit more of an emotional passage, we can control it that way. But obviously we don't just need to use our mouse here. We can use some MIDI to help us out with some actual feeling here. And you can see too below a lot of these knobs that it just tells you which thing is controlling what. So for example, with the dynamics, we can also just use the mod wheel here to change the dynamic slider. But below here where it says first note, you can see that it's being controlled by the velocity, which means that depending on how hard we hit it, that's going to change the attack style of the string section. So it's really handy that everything is just laid out really clearly for us to be able to change or to assign to our MIDI controller. It's also really nice to be able to control multiple things at once. So, for this mic balance thing, like maybe all we know so far is that we want one instrument to be on the intimate side and one instrument to be on the ambient side, right? What does that mean? Well, you just turn the knob. So it's nice to not be looking at a list of like 12 mics and have to do the entire balance just if you want something a little bit more intimate. You can just turn one knob like you do here. Or you could also change some of the presets too. So if you want it like more of a wide sound, you just click wide. Or close. Or lush long. So if you already know what type of articulation you want, like let's say you wanted a staccato sound, you can just click staccato real quick. But what's really cool is this universal mode. If you look down by where it says first note, you can see that the velocity is going to control the articulation that we're using. So it's nice to be able to press a note harder and change the articulation based on the idea that you're working on. Play it a little bit harder now. So if we just play a combination of velocities here. And normally this is a really tough thing to do with a plugin like this because you have to use all kinds of key switch automations. But in this case, you just use universal and you could explore a bunch of different articulations with the melody that you're working on and decide what works best. But also, if you like to work with key switches, you can work that way as well. And you can see which note is assigned to which key switch right away. So if I wanted to, go to staccato real quick, we can just hit F7. It jumps to staccato, and we can work the classic way as well. But let's actually stick with universal mode so that we can go through the process of exploring a couple of different articulations while we make a melody that we can make a beat out of. You see how some of the notes at the end there, we were kind of flirting with some other stuff that wasn't quite staccato, which is kind of a nice little detailed change in there for just for variation to keep the listener's ears engaged a little bit instead of the same articulation over and over again. So now let's add in some drums to this. It's kind of got that early 2000s bounce to it. So let's add some other of these VSL instruments into the mix here. How about this time we select some brass here, and let's go with 15 players. Let's keep it on universal and see what we can come up with here. I'm thinking we go like yeah, get some of that attack going. Again, do you hear the kind of mix of the articulations in there? It's kind of nice that some of them are more staccato and some of them are held out a little bit longer, because that's exactly the type of thing that I wanted to add to this melody here. Now I think it's time to add in some bass to help round it out a little bit. And I just want to accentuate those two, like basically the brass hits that we just threw in there. There's also some other cool instruments in here too that I want to play around with. Like I'm kind of hearing one of those bells at the beginning of the beat here, like on the downbeat. So I think what we need is like a tubular bell. Yeah, check this out. Yeah, like one of these. These are so cool. I also kind of want to accentuate using one of these percussion elements, the downbeat as well, like a loud tom kind of thing. And I think a timpani is what we need. Yeah, let's see what we can do with this. I kind of like these octaves, man. One thing I'm hearing as I listen back as well is I kind of want to just have this melody be longer notes instead of on the universal mode where it was more staccato, just to see how it vibes with the rest of what we've got here. So I'm going to change it to the articulation to long and let's see how this does. Yeah, I think that's feeling pretty good. Listen to this too. This is the same string section that we had. I think this could be a really cool way to accentuate those changes in the rest of the bounce that we got here. I love being able to mix those together. It's so cool. Nice. Yeah, I love that. And I kind of too want to make like a little B section that will break down a little bit and we can add another melody. And there are these violins I want to check out. Yeah, let's use these first violins here and come up with a cool little melody we can add on top of everything. Yeah, I think that could create some nice tension for it to kind of build back into the beat. One really cool thing about using the long articulation and these first note changes is that you can get really expressive with just the one that's not connected to any other notes, right? So the very first note, like we can come at it really softly, like, or so it's so easy to be expressive. And then maybe we could even add in a little bit of automation to the mod wheel, just so we can make the performance a little bit more emotive. I'm just gonna go to the top and activate the plus sign, which basically allows me to record on top of the MIDI notes that are already there. And then we're gonna also click this little icon to the right of it, which arms the automation for us to make some changes to the mod wheel, which, as we know, is affecting the dynamics of the violin section here. So let's add in some very subtle adjustments to the dynamics and make the performance a little bit more emotive. So if you're a composer or you just like to add in orchestral elements into your production and you'd rather spend less time fiddling around with, hundreds of parameters, check out VSL's Synchron Prime Edition and get into the flow. And as always, happy music making to you, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Peace.